Hey everyone, welcome to a new video. So now finally preseason is coming to an end. We can start making some videos again and go into what 10.1 is going to be like. Before we get into changes, I've had a lot of questions asking like how the reset actually works. So it starts on the 10th on Friday, and apparently it's very early hours in the morning. That's normally how it works as well. So if you wanted to stay up all night, technically you could probably play from like 4 or 5 a.m. So everyone's rank is going to reset, and you're going to get a provisional rank after your first game. So only you can see that rank. Nobody else can see it until you finish your placement games, and you can't lose LP during those games. There are no promos, and you have really big LP games. It's going to be 8 games. I think it's 10 for flex queue, but 8 games for general solo queue, and then after that you're going to get put into a rank and it goes like normal. Very quick things that I kind of say like every single year: I never surrender in these first 8 games because they do make a big difference, and your LP and your MMR is going to jump around a lot. Also, it's probably not a good idea to play all 8 of those games in a row. You can play them on the same day if you really want to, but I would recommend like taking breaks every couple of games just to kind of refresh and get ready. Day 1 is always going to be a mess. You can't really get away from that. You could score really easy games with good teammates against players who are like ranked lower than you last time, or it could be the other way around, and it could be a lot harder. It's probably not best to rush through these instantly as fast as possible because they do mean quite a lot, but it's not all lost after 8 games, even if you have like a kind of bad stretch. You're going to have better MMR, good LP gains for like the next 20 games, at least roughly, and even I think the next like 30 after like your first 50 are going to make more difference than normal. There are also always MMR issues on day 1 with getting some weird ranks after the reset and stuff, so if you play instantly at day 1, you might get screwed. It's just how it goes. With that out of the way, good luck in season 10. I'm sure you guys are going to do great, but we're going to jump into our first change, which is a really big one, which is for Nami. So E is now going to also empower the target's abilities, so your next 3 basic attacks or abilities apply the damage, and that's slow. If you use an area of effect ability, it does 33% damage to start with. That scales up to 66%, but it still applies the full slow apparently, which seems really good. Giving champions like Lucian, for example, a slow on his W is pretty crazy when you're trying to chase people down. There can be some really crazy stuff actually, even from lane phase. Like Jin's ultimate can apply the slow now, and the damage, I guess it kind of slows already, but Caitlyn ultimate, for example, Caitlyn Q, Kai'Sa W, all that stuff. It is a bit more damage, but honestly, it only does a lot of damage when you max it out, so it's just mainly the slow. It's mostly about the setup, I think. Mages bot lane as well are going to be even better now with this Nami pairing, so we might see some cheese lanes like Cassio's E, the Twin Fangs, actually apply a full slow and damage, I think, as well, and that sounds really good. Remember as well, it's also giving speed because of Nami's passive and stuff, so that sounds insanely good, like when you buff all of that together. We already know it's going to be really good as well because Ezreal's Q applies it and has done because of the way it works, so that is actually really powerful, and now it's just going to work for every single champion. Other poke champions as well, like Xerath, for example, his Q is going to have that, so you're going to do a bit more damage, but you're going to have the slow to set things up a bit more, and it should honestly make team fighting just a bit better. The other really big thing as well is that Sylas is getting sort of like a mini rework, honestly. He's going to play really different. He's not really an AP bruiser anymore. He's kind of an AP assassin. There are loads of this, and you can read this stuff on screen and probably pause it as well, but the short version is that he has less base stats early, but more later now. His passive now gives attack speed. His W cooldown has been decreased. His E AP ratio has been increased as well, but there's no shield on that anymore at all, and your W, your E, and your ultimate have the basic attack reset removed. There are a couple of other things as well, like your Q detonation damage is like way more, but the chains don't do as much, and your W doesn't deal more damage to low health enemies anymore, and it like heals based on missing health, not just under a threshold anymore. Mostly though, they've all nerfed him in the lane phase, so it's going to be easier to punish him now and to shut him down at that point, kind of like a Fizz or like an Akali. He's also way more bursty. Almost all of his damage numbers and especially ratios are massively up now. Most stuff is up 20% AP, which when you get to like 3-4 items is going to be pretty big, but his E is up 80% now. Rank 5, that does 280 damage normally, and then 100% of his AP, which is so much. Basically, he is an assassin now. You hit that and you just deal a ton of damage, like 500, 600 plus easy later into the game, but if you miss it, you're kind of done, and that's it. Seems like honestly his ultimate, everything else really now in his kit is there to help him assassinate and to jump in and kill stuff, and that's pretty much it. Like, you've lost your shield, so you can't really brawl as much. Your auto resets are gone as well. Like, your passive is going to work a bit different, even get a bit of attack speed, which is kind of nice, but he's probably a bit too fragile to go top lane or jungle now as well, so he's likely only going to be mid lane. I think this is going to be like a Kali, maybe high risk, high reward, but it really is going to play completely different. Next up, we're going to go into Ophelia. Helios, so his move speed is down 5, health down 30, and the Infernum ultimate damage does 75% secondary targets now from 100% damage. So they're taking out his kind of like 1v5 potential in a team fight. It will still be really good, but just not like insane if they're clumped together and you use this, and this is like the flamethrower. He is honestly like really good right now, definitely like the best AD in his current state, so we'll see where he lands after this. Like the triple Q combo where you Q, you swap your weapon, you Q, and then you swap again to a new weapon because the ammo run out to Q again is just kind of ridiculous. The idea is supposed to be that it's less face roll, but still really good, and they're taking out the kind of broken element of it, but honestly, I don't think this is why he was like winning so many games. I think he's actually just really strong in general anyway. Next up, we have a nerf for Mordekaiser though, and this is a slap on the wrist for probably the strongest champion in the game. If not, it's going to be definitely like top 5. So his passive duration decreased to 4 seconds from 5, and the move speed now 3% from 3 to 9%, so it doesn't scale anymore. It is a bit hard to chase with Mordekaiser without your passive, so it's going to suck a bit early for trading and maybe even a little bit later. Honestly, I kind of feel like once you get your Rylai's, I doubt you're going to miss the move speed as much as you think because you have that slow, right? Still going to be really insane. You can miss everything, just stand next to somebody, burn them down, and Conqueror, honestly, with his heal and his shield, is just way too good. Before we go into some of the other champion stuff, like there are lots of like kind of small tweaks here and kind of simpler changes, I would call them. We have a pretty cool one to Jax. So his ultimate damage is now going to work with the Rage Blade. So this is a part where he does 100 to 180 damage plus a bit of ratio every 3 attacks. I think this is actually one of the most interesting changes, or could be, right? It could be really good, really insane, or it could make no difference at all because you have to buy a Rage Blade. Imagine if Vayne's W, for example, didn't work with Rage Blade normally and suddenly they added it in. Everybody would be like, wow, that's actually pretty crazy. Maybe it's not quite as bad as that, obviously, but this is pretty big. If you're slamming away, split pushing, stacking it up, and then you fight people after that, like when it's already stacked, you're going to do so much more damage. So now we have some of these simpler changes. So the first one is going to be to Aurelian Soul. So the passive damage has been lowered to 12 to 120 from 16 to 120. It's a bit weird because I haven't seen Aurelian Soul this entire preseason. I haven't played as much because preseason kind of sucks, but still, I haven't seen him in ages, and I don't think that many people are playing him. Basically, the idea is that with Conqueror especially, well, you can run Conqueror if you want to, but just you can bully way too hard early game. You can push and roam, and it's just honestly not that healthy for the game, so that is what they're targeting. The next two is pretty ironic, I guess, because for a while in pro play and going into worlds and stuff, we had a mid lane meta, which was pretty boring. It was Azir and Corki, and both of these are now getting buffed. Azir is a bit different. It's all around his ultimate, so when you actually swoop in and try and use that, the ultimate base damage increased by 25, and wall duration increased by 2 seconds up to 5. Honestly, for me, this is less about actually having damage, and if you're going to swoop in and use your streamer shuffle, it's probably not going to make that much difference at all. It will make a difference, though, if you try to use it to actually block off a part in a team fight. If you try and use it to keep people away, then it does last a bit longer, and that 2 seconds is actually pretty good. For Corki, it is a bit different because it is all around his damage. So his ultimate base damage increased later. It's going to be up 20. So it starts the same, but it's going to end 20 more at 160. I actually had a quick look because I haven't seen him in ages, haven't even heard anybody talk about him. And apparently 0.5% of people are playing him right now. So I guess this is probably not going to be enough to actually make him meta and make people play him. Next up, we have another one to Jace. Also not really seen that much. So I did see one today, fed his ass off, but still won the game. So there is that, I guess. But his Q cannon base damage increased a bit later. It's up 25 at the latest rank, so it's going to be up to 330 from 305. So it is a good chunk, and it's going to be also your poke as well, so that is going to do way more. Honestly, I don't think Jace really fits in this meta right now. I think there are way too many bad matchups. I think a lot of tanks take a royal dump on him right now. You can build tabbies and you pretty much counter him as well, so we might see him a little bit later into the season, but probably not for now. Next up, we have one I'm pretty happy about. One of my favorite AD carries is getting buffed. So Calista, the base health growth increased to 100 from 89, and armor growth increased to 4 from 3.5. Calista actually had a couple of buffs recently that weren't too bad. I played her since, and she felt okay, but still, it's just making your life difficult if you play as champion. There are so many ones that are better, especially ones with higher range. Honestly, I feel like Calista needs a rework, because if they buff her any more than this, everybody at higher reload, well, not everybody, but a lot of people at higher reload will start to abuse her again, and it still won't really pick up for lower rank. So it's just a really poorly designed champion, I think. Next up, though, we have a change to a really popular champion. So Castin's move speed has been reduced by 5. Apparently, Riot's reasoning is that he chases you down too much mid-game, and this is going to take a bit of power out. He can't chase you as much, and it'll be easier to lock down. I'm not really sure about that. I don't know if you've seen Castin. He doesn't really spend too much time running, because most of his time is spent jumping around, and this doesn't really fix that. It is a bit of a meme, but move speed is king in this game, even though you can't really buy it and you don't really notice it as much. It does allow you to do a lot in this game, and boost of speed, the brown boots, regular boots are 25 flat move speed, so 5 is still a decent portion, but it's not a ton. Next up, we have a slightly bigger one to Sejuani. So base health growth increase, passive armor and magic resist bonus increased to 50% from 35%, which is actually pretty good. And your E-base damage has been increased at later ranks by 40. For this one, Sejuani doesn't really work in this meta because you either have to gank a lot or you have to farm a lot, or ideally you do a bit of both, and Sejuani can't really do a bit of both. Tanks don't do that well. Zac is the kind of exception because he's just a ganking machine with his E, which is really good, but Sejuani is kind of like an ultimate stunbot, and that's pretty much it. Next up, we do have one to Shyvana, one of the best dragon takers in the game, so it would kind of make sense if she did come back just a little bit for how much the dragon soul actually means. It's kind of just like small tweaks really, so you gain resistances when slaying Elder Dragon, completely useless. I've seen it once in like however many games since that actually came in. I really have never seen Elder Dragon. Also, your Fury gain is increased instead of ultimate cooldown reduction when you're slaying Cloud Drakes, which apparently she was just getting absolutely no benefit out of at the moment, so that actually probably is a big deal. And also your E mark target damage ratio is increased, and the monster damage cap increase as well, so you should do more damage and farm better. As I said, I'm not sure it's going to make too much difference. Like if we were going to see Shyvana, we probably already would have with how important dragon souls are going to be. The AP build is better. I don't think this really targets AP build. It's sustained damage, and we don't really use Shyvana for that reason apart from taking objectives. So next up, we have another one of my favorite AD carries. Apparently all my favorite ADs just get absolutely butchered apart from like Kaiser and Lucian, I guess. So Q cooldown has been lowered to 18 to 10 from 20 to 12 seconds, but the refund from Blight stacks has been lowered to 3 seconds from 4. So basically we get 2 seconds off the cooldown, which is really nice, but if we proc the Blight, it's like 1 second out of that worse. So it's kind of a 1 second overall increase if you proc your Blight stacks with your Q. A lot of people might not even know that was a thing, I guess, but if you're going for the lethality poke build, that would actually be better for you now. And if you're going for more of an auto-attacking style build, you're only using your Q to proc the Blight stacks, so it actually doesn't make too much difference. For our last two, these are relatively small unless you play the actual champion a lot, and then you're probably going to notice the difference. So first one is for Vi. Our ultimate now is unstoppable for the entire duration, even the uppercut. Apparently you could be crowd controlled and you could be stunned as you're finishing your ultimate, so it was kind of like lame to go into an entire team, get locked down, and then just basically die, but now it should be a bit easier to dive in and follow up with a bit more damage afterwards. Last up, we have a change to Zyra, which is actually pretty cool. It gives you a bit more freedom to play around it, I guess, like a bit more expression with that. So your E slow from your plants has been changed from 30% flat to 25% per plant, stacking up to 50%. Before, there wasn't really a reason to ever have two of these plants up, but now that it definitely is going to be like, if you can have two of those, you're going to stack up your slow and it's going to be a lot better, and it should set up and make setting up the rest of your combo a lot easier. Before we end the video, we have a couple of extra ones. So Omnistone is still complete trash. I've seen it on Skarn in the top lane, actually Twisted Fate a little bit, and that's pretty much it. The cooldown has been reduced to 5 to 3 seconds now for melee and 9 to 7 for ranged, and before that it was 7 to 3 for melee and 11 to 7 for ranged. Basically it's going to stay the same at the end, but it's going to start a bit better, and especially for melee, every 5 seconds actually not that bad at all. So if you can use it, like, you might get some benefit out of it. It's really good for early in the lane phase and stuff to cheese it, but it's not that good later, I feel like. And then finally, we have some support item stuff. They're actually trying to make these better earlier and not as good as they fully upgrade, which I kind of think is like insane. I'm getting solo killed by supports in lane already, enough as it is. So anyway, with the Relic Shield and the Steel Shoulder Guards, so kind of the tanky ones, they're given health regen there, but the full upgrade has less AP on the Relic Shield and less AD on the Steel Shoulder Guards. For the Spectral Sickle and your Spell Thief's Edge, so the damage ones, they both give mana regen now, so you can be a bit more aggressive with these, but the full upgrade has less AD and health on the Sickle, and they're also less AP and health on the Edge. So that is going to wrap up the video on 10.1. From future now as well, we're going to be having videos on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays every single week at least. Maybe some bonus ones thrown in as well, but I'll try and be a bit more consistent now that Season 10 is on. Thanks for watching the video. Good luck with your placement games if you don't watch a video from me before then, but for now, I will leave you with Robos.